Next up, we got Quinshon Judkins. Now, here's a guy that weird story, guys. So he's at Ohio State, part of a split back system. So he's sharing carries with another guy that we're going to get to tomorrow. 21 years old, 6 foot even, 219 pounds, from Pike Road, Alabama. And again, Pike Road was not the name of the road; it's the town. It's a little confusing. He started his career at Ole Miss. 22 his freshman year, 1,567 yards and 16 touchdowns. In 23 at Ole Miss, 1,158 yards and 15 touchdowns. Damn good 2 seasons to start.
Yep.
Then goes to Ohio State. Like I said, splits carries. This past year, 194 carries, 1,060 yards, 5.5 yards per carry average, 14 touchdowns, 22 catches, 161 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 88.8 PFF grade. Now, remember we talked about that guys like Genty is getting, about 300 carries per season. 194. So call it 200. So that means his 1,000 yards is equivalent of 1,500 yards with Genty. So he's not in that kind of category as far as production-wise. He's a better receiver than he is, though. And again, you're going to get some teams I think you're not going to like Genty because of the lack of receiving abilities. There'll be some guys who don't care, like give me an old school, like hard-nosed kind of a running back. And I love that personally. I want those days back again. But there'll be some that won't like him for that reason and say, hold off, we'll get a running back later. And this is one of the guys they're going to look at there. 2022 SEC Freshman of the Year. Connolly Trophy winner that year as well. First team All SEC, both 22 and 23. This past year, third team All Big Ten, which is crazy. Third team. But again, it's the splitting of the carries. People started looking past this kind of stuff. I'm looking at a guy who literally went to the 2 toughest, conferences in college football and showed dominance at both.
Yeah.
I don't care about the fact that he barely covered 1,000 yards. He barely covered 1,000 yards with a 5.5 yards per carry average.
Split time.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's really good at short bursts. He wears down defenses. He's good at short yardage and goal line situations there. He's patient as well, but sometimes just a little bit too patient. We talked about earlier with Genty. He's kind of the reverse, kind of hit the hole a little bit too early once in a blue moon. This is a guy that waits for it to develop so much sometimes that it's starting to break down again on him.
He also has the ability to, I guess, he has a really fast burst, but his acceleration isn't that great.
Yes.
When it comes to talking about him.
Yeah, he's not a home run threat by any stretch of the imagination. He is also a one cut back, meaning he's going to make one move. He's not going to be the guy that's going to shake around like a Saquon or a Barry or something like that. Like, that's not what he is. He's one cut, one move, and go. And then he's not going to break it for a 60-yard run. He's going to go ahead and get a consistent 5-6 yards a carry. Like, that's what he's going to do, Obviously, in the NFL, you got to think that's going to go down probably to 4 or 5 yards, just his life. But if he can do that, that's a solid running back there. He also does have trouble shaking off defenders. So, like, if you get him in the open field, whether it be a catch or a run, he's got one guy to beat. He's not going to be the guy that you're going to he's going to beat this guy easily. Like, there's some running backs that are just special when you watch them and you're like, yeah. Like, with Damian Tomlinson, when he was in the open field with one guy to make a miss, that guy was going to miss. I feel like those defenders were like, let's just slow him down enough for some help to get here. That's the way it was. And it's like, he's not going to be that kind of guy. He's that guy that you got one guy to miss and you're going, oh please beat this guy. Like, that's just the way he is.
Guy.
He's also, like I said, he's okay at receiving. He's not great at receiving. He does need a little bit of work on pass protection as well. I think he's probably best as the power back in a 1-2 combo. This is a guy I don't think is going to be a workhorse back per se. That's not a knock on him. That's just the way the NFL is nowadays. There's very few guys who are workhorse backs that are going to come out to the NFL and be that. Now, he's a guy that could prove me wrong because, again, he didn't get the chance to necessarily do that in Ohio State, and people kind of forget what he did, Ole Miss there for a couple of years. But, it reminds me of? Remember when Auburn had Cadillac Williams, Ronnie Brown, and our guy, Brandon Jacobs?
Oh.
All three of them in the same college. Like, that's the kind of system, like, you got to look at and go, you know what? This has worked before. You go back 20 years ago, actually more than that, even like 30 years ago almost now. Miami had like amazing. They had like Quentin Portis and Frank Gore on the same team, like that kind of thing. Like it does happen, guys.
Yeah.
So I think he's gonna drop a little because of splits, though. I think he's gonna be like second or third round, but I think he could be a guy that if you're confident in him enough and you give him a chance, I really do think he could surprise people and not be as good as like a Hampton or a Genty, but not too far a drop off as you might think from a Hampton specifically.
Yeah. It comes to the newer players. They kind of remind me of a not so good version of Brees Hall.
I would say a more agile Brees Hall.
Yeah, Brees Hall is more down the middle, but he's also really good with the catch out of the backfield compared to.
Yeah. I just think he's got a little more agility to him than Brees Hall does. So,
if you like that clip, then you will love the full episodes too. Find us on your favorite podcast app and look for us on all your favorite social media platforms.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you.